F1 is back after the summer break, and we pitch up on the shores of the North Sea in the Netherlands. It's Zandvoort, which plays host to the 15th round on the calendar. We've got a championship battle to resume, a midfield pecking order to re-establish, and some drivers still vying for their futures. Lots to get stuck into then, and to do it all alongside me in the commentary box is F1 journalist Rebecca Clancy and reigning F1 Academy champion Abby Pulling. Down pit side for us though is Rosanna Tennant. Afternoon, Rosanna. Actually, I want you to go full weather presenter for us, please, because there has been sort of rain on and off so far, right?
I can do that for you, Harry. Yes, yesterday we had torrential rain, thunder as well. As you said, we're just off the coast of the North Sea, so the weather rolls in. And yesterday I was really worried about the rest of the weekend staying dry, but it cleared up yesterday afternoon and we had beautiful blue skies and sunshine. Today it's still dry, quite a lot of cloud cover, about 20 degrees, but quite a bit of blue sky as well. So the fans are enjoying themselves out in the grandstands. You can probably hear the music, can you, Harry? They've been blasting out Sweet Caroline. It's a bit of a party atmosphere here. As Max Verstappen said yesterday, bit of driving here in Zandvoort, quite a lot of party.
It certainly is, isn't it? House music pretty much blasting from day till night across all 3 days of the Dutch Grand Prix. And somebody who knows what it's like to drive around this circuit is Abby Pulling. Abby, welcome back to the 5 Live commentary box. How are you? Fresh off the back of a podium in GB4 last weekend.
No, happy to be back, and yeah, coming off of the GB3 championship.
GB3, sorry.
Yeah, GB3
do you an
championship.
injustice.
Getting the podium, which was really, really nice after a very kind of tough start to the season, to be honest. But really happy to be back talking about Zandvoort and the Grand Prix coming up. I mean, I absolutely love this track. It's one that I raced at last year, and yeah, it's no kidding. The climate here it's its own little thing, and it just does what it wants.
I mean, it's such a unique circuit, really. It's twisty, it's tight. Look, overtaking is not always the best when it comes to Sunday's Grand Prix, but you have the likes of turn 3 and the final corner where you've got that huge degree of banking, 18 degrees around the final corner, 19 degrees going through turn 3. I mean, you don't really get that on any other circuit on the F1 calendar right now.
No, none at all. I mean, there's definitely cambered corners to an extent, but nothing like the banking we see in turn 3, and it's quite spectacular, really. We were talking a little bit off air how you go around turn 3 and you can only see the track ahead of you. You don't see any sky or anything. You've got to look up to actually see where you're going. So it's a really strange corner, but it's its own unique thing, Zandvoort, and it's what it's known for, and I just love the character of this track, and all the drivers, I think, say it's one up there in their kind of top 3 favourites, as it's just got so many different challenges. It goes up and down. It throws a lot at you.
It's got an old school nature to it, hasn't it? But when it came back on the calendar a few years ago, a few tweaks made to make it F1 ready. But we'll say goodbye to it after next year. Only one more race planned in Zandvoort, which will take place next year, and then it will fall off the calendar. Will it return? That is still to be seen. So we've got to lap every minute of it up whilst we still can. Rebecca Clancy also with us in the commentary box, of course. And well, we've had a nice break. I think everybody is quite appreciative of that summer break. 10 races to go now. It feels like a proper countdown to the end, but there's still so much to go on.
It doesn't actually sound like that many, does it? 10.
No.
You think we've had 14 already, well over the halfway mark. But actually, back in the day, 10 races was the majority of a season. So only 9 points between championship leader Oscar Piastri and his McLaren teammate Lando Norris, which is absolutely nothing in the grand scheme of 10 races, 3 sprint races. So yes, it is very much all to play for, and I suspect that will be the storyline that dominates us running down into Abu Dhabi in the finale in December.
Yeah, it certainly will. Let's just bring you up to speed with how the standings lie. As Vex was saying, Oscar Piastri 9 points clear at the top of the Drivers' Championship. Lando Norris behind, and Max Verstappen 97 points off the top point in third. Then it's Russell and Charles Leclerc, the top 5. As we approach the green light, getting ready to come on at the end of the pit lane, let's head there now with Rosanna.
cars pouring out of the garages, Harry, and I was standing outside the McLaren garages. Lando Norris went out first, followed by his teammate Oscar Piastri, and they headed down to the end of the pit lane. A car who I couldn't quite make out was already there in front of them, but now there's a real traffic jam forming. Green light at the end of the pit lane. They're keen to get out and try out their machinery around this incredible bank track.
And we are go. Formula One is back in business in 2025. Free practice 1 underway ahead of the Dutch Grand Prix, and it was Nico Hulkenberg Sauber which was first in the queue to make his way out onto this 4.259 kilometre track made up of 14 turns, 10 to the right, 4 to the left. It's twisty. It's got those huge banked corners, 19 degrees of banking, left-hander through turn 3, then you almost ride the roller coaster of 4, 5 and 6, a quick right, a quick left, then right again for a double right-hander, brings you into the middle sector of this lap, and those last 2 corners, turns 13 and 14, which slingshot you back out onto the start-finish straight. Another bit of 18-degree banking for the drivers to get up to speed with, but we are then back in business. Both McLarens straight out onto the circuit, and really this is the battle that we're going to be enjoying, we hope, Abby, until the checkered flag in Abu Dhabi. You have to say, a lot of chat this weekend, a lot of questions being asked in the press conference to the drivers in the media pen on Thursday, the media day yesterday, was all about momentum and if that is actually a thing or not. And if you do think it's a thing, well, you've got to look at Lando Norris off the back of a win in Hungary last time out. And then, of course, he was the winner here last year in what was a pretty emphatic display of how strong he is around this circuit. But it's Piastri who leads the championship. Do you believe in momentum? Does that affect you in your racing career?
Definitely, it definitely exists, and I mean, Lando's riding a high at the moment. He's had some incredible results going into the summer break, and that whole break, of course, he's not in the ideal position. He wants to be the one being chased, but he's been the top point scorer in the last few races, and I mean, he's putting up a really big fight to Oscar. There was definitely a point in the season where I think people thought Oscar was just going to walk away with it, and he's just got this mental resilience that's unmatched. But I'm really liking the inter-team battle and how Lando has bounced back, proven the critics wrong, and yeah, this final half of the season I think is just going to be anyone's game, really.
Pretty much everybody out on track now, with the exception of Max Verstappen and George Russell, who are still in the pit lane. For those who wish to do a sync-up, it's 57 minutes and 30, 29, 28, 27 seconds remain of this first practice session to get up to speed then with how this track lies. Expecting it to be a little bit on the green side, a little bit dusty as well. Of course, the wind gusts here can get up to some fast speeds, about 9 kilometre per hour wind speed at the moment, bringing in with it, of course, a bit of that sand from the dunes, because we are right by the beach.
I was going to say, one of the biggest challenges of this track is the fact that it is on the beachfront and that there are sand dunes surrounding the circuit, and that means that a lot of sand gets thrown onto the track as well. It's been raining, so that's carried it onto the circuit, and it's really low grip when you have that lining the circuit, and you can see it being thrown up by the cars as they're going around. Essentially, FP1 is just to clean the track and to lay some rubber down, preparing for the rest of the weekend. The track state will constantly be improving, and I think it will be quite a significant improvement throughout a weekend like this.
Bit of smoke, and of course the sparks flying from the underside of Kimi Antonelli's, I should say, Mercedes, as he winds his way through sector 1, the twisty, the tight 4, 5 and 6, which powers you around the double right-hander through 7. Then you're approaching the right-hander of 8 again. I don't think you really keep the wheel in a straight line for very long around here, apart from on the start-finish straight, because everything has a slight curve to it as Antonelli now approaches the chicane at turns 11 and 12, with the sun beating down on that silver arrow. No rain in sight just yet, but expecting it to be a mixed weekend. Antonelli round the final corner. Now let's see what he's got for a man who's looking to find that momentum, if it does exist, trying to get back on top form as he goes up to second spot. Carlos Sainz is currently the quickest driver with a 1:13.863 ahead of Albon, Piastri, Antonelli and Hadjar, the top 5. Rosanna Tennant.
Well, Harry, when the green light showed at the end of the pit lane, I told you there was a traffic jam of drivers trying to get out. Then there was a second flurry of cars heading out into the fast lane. And two of those drivers were Yuki Tsunoda in the Red Bull and Lewis Hamilton in the Ferrari. Lewis Hamilton was released from his garage, headed out into the pit lane, and then had to absolutely slam on the brakes because Yuki Tsunoda had been released into his path. So worth keeping an eye out on the FIA message board for that one. It did seem like Lewis Hamilton had to drop the anchors. So may come up a little later on in the session.
Thanks, Rosanna. Yeah, Lewis Hamilton, a man looking to refine a bit of that mojo as well. You can tell we're back because I don't want to get stuck into anything because we've got to do a news desk hit in a minute and I don't want to get too stuck into anything at a nice debate before I've got to do that. So if you're listening to us on Sports Extra, there will be a 30-second hit for you coming your way, but then we'll get properly stuck into things if it ever arrives. As Max Verstappen, to the roar of the Orange Army that will pack out the grandstands across the weekend, goes fastest in these early stages, a 1:12.767. Everyone running the medium tyre, with the exception of Tsunoda, who has gone out there on the hard. Pirelli have gone a step softer than what they brought last year. Again, another example of trying to find more strategy options to open this race up into a two-stop race, but some still expecting it to be a one-stopper as Lando Norris now goes second fastest, just under 2/10 away from Max Verstappen. Carlos Sainz reporting quite windy out there on track. Abby, as a driver, again, we did speak about this a few moments ago, just that feeling of when you're going through the banking of now they all do have names and I'm just a bit scared to say them because I think I'll butcher them, but turn 3 is Hugenholtz and then Arie Luyendyk, I believe, is the last set, is the last corner coming out through the right hander of 14. But when you're sat in the cockpit of car, obviously you're much lower down than when we watch it on our TV screen. So how do you describe that feeling of the elevation change and what you're seeing as a driver at that point?
I think the craziest thing is just how much speed you can take around the corners because they're cambered. It's like, have you ever been to the circus and they've got the motorbikes that are on that wheel driving horizontally? It almost feels a little bit like that. I don't know if do you know what I'm on about?
I think I do.
But yeah, the momentum that you can carry through there because of it is absolutely insane. And actually going into turn 3 from turn 2, it's a bit of a crest, so it ends up making the rear go light before you then hit the compression going into it. So it's quite interesting, and you can get on the throttle so early. I think the place where I always look to make the time in turn 3 is not on the entry, as if you get a snap, it's quite hard to catch, just down to the nature of the corner. You've almost got to turn into it rather than turn with it rather than turn into it, which makes it a bit strange on the entry. So putting your throttle on and slingshotting out of it is actually normally the best way.
Yeah, it certainly does have that look to it, especially out the final corner. Tsunoda pops himself up into 4th. Yeah, we are back up and running. Early stages in this practice session, right by the North Sea. We are in Zandvoort. Oscar Piastri, fastest at the moment. Made that Fernando Alonso, who's just gone to the top. But these are very early stages, and of course, the big battle to watch across the remainder of the season is between the two McLaren drivers. Just 9 points separating Oscar Piastri and Lando Norris, and they recommence their fight this weekend. How will it pan out? Norris won here last year, but Piastri has made a step up, that's for sure, this season. There it is. Right, now we can get stuck in. Rebecca.
Yes, Harry.
Let's debate.
No, go on, hit me.
Now, last time out in Hungary, Piastri looked incredibly strong.
He did.
But Norris won the race.
He did.
Had a bad start.
There's not much debating happening yet.
No, they changed the strategy.
Yep.
And that got him the race by only doing a one stop. So, am I correct in thinking that in terms of team orders between the two McLarens, they're gone, they're out the window, they can fight hard? So what's this going to come down to? Is this all going to be about, this is actually McLaren, one side of McLaren fighting the other, and it all comes down to strategy?
Right, so we have to put this into context first, because McLaren is so far ahead in the Constructors' Championship. They are on 559 points. Second place Ferrari are on just 260. The reason I'm saying this is because McLaren now have the freedom to let their drivers race. And actually, I think what we saw in Hungary, and I think what we'll continue to see over the next 10 races, is that the drivers are going to be allowed to almost pick their own strategy. Yes, okay, to a degree, that's like saying actors write their own lines. They obviously don't. But what I mean by that is they will go into a race with plan A, B, C, D, E, F, and then it all goes all the way down, and fair play, they always seem to... big spin there from Hamilton.
We had a momentary yellow flag. It went green very quickly because Hamilton managed to recover that lovely, I think it was a full 360-degree spin, coming into the left-hander, the banked Hugenholtz corner of turn 3. Wouldn't have done his tyres much use. Let's hear from him.
So I got flat spots all around.
And there are the flat spots all round for Lewis Hamilton, as he will probably make his way back to the pits, which I believe George Russell has just come in to. Rosanna.
He came in just for a few moments, Harry. They stopped him on his markers and then they changed the front wing. It took a bit of time to get it off. It's now been wheeled away into the back room of the garage and he went straight out. So he wasn't wheeled into the garage. Obviously didn't want to waste time doing that, but obviously not happy with the front wing they'd chosen to start the session on. All part of them working out the best setup, of course, for the weekend.
Thanks, Rosanna. We've got another yellow flag out on the track at the moment. Just trying to see if anybody has stopped out onto the circuit, or perhaps it's gravel. No, it's Yuki Tsunoda.
That's
a man
12.
under pressure, indeed. A man under pressure coming into this last half of the season. And we've got another car off, and it's the Mercedes of Kimi Antonelli, who finds himself in the gravel and facing the wall. We've got a red flag as a result of that, and he is beached. Kimi Antonelli spinning up his rear tyres. He hasn't hit the wall. He stopped just shy of it. And that is just making his way around, coming out of into the gravel, but red flag out, so everybody will come into the pit lane. So Tsunoda was off in the gravel, but he rejoined onto the circuit, and now Kimi Antonelli finds himself stopped out on the circuit through turn 9.
In the gravel.
Yeah, you see that?
Yeah, so I think that's coming out of the second of the right-handers of turn 9. Tsunoda looks like he's made it back to the pits, though. Rosanna.
He has, and he's just being put up onto the dolly and wheeled back into the Red Bull garage. And if I then spin round, Red Bull are next to Mercedes. George Russell's just been pushed back into his garage. And then, of course, there's the empty garage of Kimi Antonelli and his race engineer, Pete Bonington, just standing, looking up at the screens. Obviously, we'll wait to see his driver. I can't see a screen, Harry. Are they able to get him out of the gravel?
Well, we can't see it either at the moment because they're showing what happened to Yuki Tsunoda, and he was coming into the chicane, clipped the inside curve, and that just caused him to go into a spin, and then he rejoined, so wouldn't have done his tyres much use. But here we go, now we're seeing Antonelli. So here he comes into the right-hander of turn 8. That leads you into the right-hander of 9, and he just can't get it turned in, Abby, and into the gravel he goes.
Yeah, his front right just locks up and he becomes a passenger. That turn 7 into turn 8, into turn 9 is a really difficult.
Can you rejoin the session?
Negative. That car will need to be recovered.
That was Antonelli on the radio, and that's not the way you want to restart your F1 season, is it?
No, that's a big shame for Kimi as well, getting laps around here. This circuit is very unforgiving, so the more laps, the merrier. But as I was saying, the turn 8 into turn 9 is a really difficult collection of corners. So going through turn 8, you're constantly on load until you get to turn right, and you're braking whilst turning right. So it's a really hard corner. And he just had a bit of front right locking, which made him miss the corner and end up in the gravel. So I was thinking at one point Yuki and Kimi's instance might be connected, but no, completely on the same time in the session, doing completely different things.
And these are the challenges of this type of track, old school in nature. The gravel awaits you to punish you. And, well, not even 15 minutes into the first practice session of the weekend, Kimi Antonelli will be out of this one. He'll return, hopefully, for free practice 2 later on this afternoon, but already down on crucial track time as the man who turned 19 years old in the last week, and not the way he would have started, would have liked to start this second half of the campaign. Let's bring in the BBC's F1 correspondent at 5 Live's Race Centre, Andrew Benson. Good afternoon, Andrew. How are we?
Hi, Harry. All good, thank you.
Glad to hear it. Just on Antonelli, I suppose there is a certain amount of pressure on Antonelli coming into this second half of the season. He hasn't been picking up the points as much as George Russell certainly has, and he has looked off the pace compared to his teammate.
Yeah, he very much had a difficult phase of the season through the start of the European races. It was all linked to change to the Mercedes suspension setup, which made the car unpredictable on corner entry. They've reverted on that upgrade in inverted commas now, and he was saying yesterday he's been much more comfortable in the car in the last couple of races, and he has looked more competitive, but obviously he does need some clean races. I don't think he's really under pressure in the sense that he's under any danger of losing his seat. He's not. He and George Russell are going to carry on at Mercedes next year. It's just a matter of time before that's confirmed, but he certainly needs to sort of settle into a nice rhythm and get his confidence fully back.
Yeah, it certainly does. It's all about confidence, isn't it? And he'll be wanting to regain that as quick as possible. Andrew, coming back to the beginnings of our chat about the action plan really at McLaren to see Piastri and Norris fight for the title all the way to Abu Dhabi. What are you hearing in the paddock? It looks like from what we've seen on track, they are absolutely free to race, but it will be defined by strategy as well going forwards.
Well, it's going to be defined by lots of things, Harry, isn't it? I mean, they've been free to race all year, and as Beck was saying, there's absolutely no reason for McLaren to change that now. They've got it's basically just the two of them in the Drivers' Championship, and McLaren is so far ahead of the Constructors' Championship, they could pack up and go home now, I think, and still win it. But I mean, it's been a really interesting last few races, because although the gap's really close in the Championship, you could argue that Oscar Piastri's been really unlucky. He was leading in Silverstone, got a questionable penalty for braking behind the safety car. That cost him the win, which then Norris got instead. He was the lead McLaren driver in Hungary, and Lando Norris made a bit of a mess of the start there. And when he changed to a one-stop strategy, Norris, he wasn't expecting to win the race. He was just trying to beat George Russell to third place. But the way the race panned out, that one-stop really worked for him. But it was kind of like it was an improvisation that over-delivered, but ended up with him winning. So really on merit you could argue that Piastri should have won that race too, and if he had, it'd been 37 points ahead, not 9. So you could almost argue Piastri's owed a win. I mean, they're basically free to do whatever they want going forward apart from run into each other. So it's going to be about qualifying, it's going to be about who races best, it's going to be about who makes the least mistakes. And yes, if it ends up with one of them behind and they are in a position to take a strategic gamble or do something different for whatever reason, such as in Hungary, then they're free to do it.
Hello, Benny. You talk about luck, but obviously that's part of sport. But who do you reckon has actually been the better of the two drivers this year so far between Piastri and Norris?
I think there's no question that Piastri's been the most consistent driver. He's won more races, he's got more pole positions, he's made less mistakes, fewer mistakes I should say, and he's leading the championship despite a bit of misfortune, and a lot of Norris's points losses have been self-imposed, crashing in qualifying in Saudi Arabia, making mistakes in qualifying in Bahrain, crashing into the back of Piastri in Canada, messing up the start in Miami and losing ground, trying to race Max Verstappen ill-advisedly, and then the things I've just mentioned before. So I think when they're both on top form, probably Norris has a very slight edge on pace, but I think over the season on balance so far, at least the way I see it, Beck, I don't know what you think, but to me Piastri's been the more impressive, the more consistent performer. I
would say more consistent, but I'm expecting a bit more from Norris in the second half of this season, or the final 10 races I should say, because it feels like he's had a different approach to his races. Particularly, it feels like we were talking about earlier, weren't we, Abby, about the momentum and how important that was, and you were saying in your career, you know, from your racing. And actually it feels like it is with Norris at the moment. It feels like he has slightly altered how he is approaching race weekends. He's very open about his mental health struggles and issues that he's had, and actually a lot of focus has gone into that as well. And I feel like we're about to get kind of almost the true measure of these two guys as racing drivers, because we're in the business end of the season now. This is when it really matters. It was a 22-point gap between them. Now it's down to 9. Norris feels like he's got the momentum behind him. So it'll be really interesting to see, because fundamentally they get on. They do, as people. Obviously on track you don't get on with anyone, but I'm really fascinated to see how their characters evolve over the next couple of months, because we're going to get a new world champion. That is almost undeniable now, unless something absolutely catastrophic happens. We will finish, someone will be getting their maiden championship this year, and I love the psychological side of sport, and that's one of the things I'm really looking forward to in the next few months.
You're right. Sorry, Abby, you carry on.
Yeah, sorry, I was just going to say what I think is so impressive with what Lando is doing is after the struggles he had at the start of the year and how open and honest he was, how he has managed to bring it back, because it is so hard when you're so engrossed in your season and coming off the back of some of the even outside voices and that were having inputs on Lando's season, to be able to come back from that and to say no, like, I'm here for a reason, I'm here to show that I can do this, and to go into the second phase of the season they're basically on equal footing, and to be able to have brought that back, I'm excited to see what he can do for the rest of the season, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, there's no question that Norris has made a sort of step forward since McLaren introduced their suspension change in Canada, which was designed for him, basically. He was struggling with a lack of feel from the front end of the car in the first part of the season, and that was what they said was behind some of those errors that I was talking about. But I still think it's interesting that even despite the fact that he's made a step forward, still Piastri was the lead driver in Silverstone and Hungary, and had those races gone as you would expect them to play out, then he still would have this quite significant lead in the championship. So you're absolutely right though, Beck. 10 races to go. This is where we see the true mettle of both of them. This is where Norris can answer the critics who say that he is more mistake prone than Piastri, who say he can't handle the pressure, and this is where we see what Oscar Piastri is really made of in only his third F1 season, let's not forget. But one of the things that I was talking to Mark Webber, his manager, Piastri's manager, this was a long time ago now, it's back in Japan, and Webber was talking about Piastri's Formula 2 championship campaign. And Abby will know this very well because she was quite close to Piastri. He was an Alpine young driver then while she was still associated with the team. And Mark was saying that he basically crushed his rivals into submission by just consistently delivering over and over and over again. And in the end, they kind of almost, there was nothing they could do to answer that sort of consistent level. And that's the battle that Norris is facing. Piastri's had a bit of arguably bad luck, you could say, over the last few races. And yet he's still there, he's still delivering. And can Norris keep up the same level of consistency himself? That's the question, I think, heading into the last 10 races. So, given that he is only in his third season then, do you think if Piastri pulls this off in what we'll probably look back and say was fairly ruthless the way that he's gone about his campaign this season, do we start talking about him as a bit of a generational talent, or is that too overhyping him slightly? I think Norris there's no question about Norris's absolute pace. He's electrically fast. The questions about Norris are whether he can be consistent enough to operate at the very, very highest level of the likes of the Verstappens, the Hamiltons, the Alonsos, for example. Whereas Piastri can. So if Piastri can prove that he's as fast as Norris, which he definitely is doing this year for the first time, then I think maybe you can say that. And let's not forget, this is a guy who won F3 in his first year, he won F2 in his first season. He won in Formula 1, not a Grand Prix, but a sprint race in his first season. And now here we are, his first chance at the championship. And so far, I think it's hard to question pretty much anything he's done all year. So it has been highly impressive, I think.
You just have to sort of listen and read some of the interviews that some of the McLaren team members are giving about Oscar Piastri as well. Tom Stallard, his race engineer, gave an interview. I can't remember which publication it was, but just highlighting the real differences in Piastri from last year to this year. It's where he approaches tracks that were previously, let's say, Lando Norris strongholds, and he has absolute dominance over them. Either Piastri was also then suddenly in the hunt, or he was much, much closer to Norris. And you have to remember, Piastri is only year 3, and if he does take the title at the end of the year, that'll be one of the shortest runs to a world championship since, I think, Lewis Hamilton did it back in 2008. While we've been chatting, by the way, cars are back and up and running. 35 minutes and 40, 39, 38 seconds seconds on the clock. Speak of Piastri, he's currently fastest of anybody through the first sector, making his way through the middle now. It's Max Verstappen quickest to 1:11.986. Just over a tenth quicker than Russell. Then it's Norris, Alonso, Sainz, the top 5, Albon, Piastri's currently 7th, then it's Hadjar, Stroll and Tsunoda, the top 10. Let's check in down in pit lane. Rosanna Tennant.
Well, you mentioned Tsunoda, Harry. He is currently still in his car in the garage, but the car has been jacked up and the mechanics have been on their backs on the floor working on the underside of the car since the red flag flew and he came into the pit. So obviously picked up some damage. He went over the gravel, managed to recover the car, got it back to the garage, but there's obviously some work to do to make sure he can get back out there for the rest of the session. And still no Kimi Antonelli. I think the FIA were keen to get the session underway again, so they cleared the car, put it on a low loader, but talking to Mercedes, they're not expecting it back before the end of the session. So really tough for the young Italian driver, who was saying yesterday that if he can get some confidence, then he's going to get better results. But of course, missing this first practice session isn't going to help the confidence levels.
Rosanna, what's Kimi Antonelli's side of the garage doing now? If they don't have a car to work on, do they just take the rest of the session off, make a cup of coffee?
What
are they up to?
I can give you absolutely exact what they're doing. They are leaning against the back of the garage, having a bit of a chat. One's got his hands on his hips. One is looking in a tray of nuts and bolts. So they are just waiting. I thought
they need to go get the teas in.
Yeah, make mine a milky one. I saw them pick up the leaf blowers, obviously to cool down the tyres and the engine at the beginning of the red flag sort of stoppage. And I thought, they're going to run off and collect the car. But then they all went and put them back behind the scenes. So, yeah, not much going on that side of the garage. They're all just having a bit of a chin wag, actually.
There's no kind of sneaky views over at Norris to see what he's up to?
No, not that I can see, unless they've passed me and are already up at the McLaren garage. But there are a few garages down now, of course, because of the results. So they're a bit far away. But actually, worth talking about the pit lane. It's got a bit faster in the pit lane this time round. They're going to be able to go down at 80 kilometres an hour rather than 60 kilometres an hour. And I watched Lando Norris leave his garage earlier, and there's a bit of banking even in the pit lane. It's a bit of maybe more camber, and he really kind of shifted with the car as he crossed from the slow lane to the fast lane. So Abby's racer, you'll know what it's like managing this pit lane, but it's interesting, the undulations are not just out on track, they're down here in the pit lane too.
Yeah, I mean, I think Zandvoort is known for its narrow pit lane, making it harder to navigate sometimes and having to get the cars pushed back and some unsafe releases. But I can't say I really took much notice of if it was cambered or not.
Get out as quick as possible. We were talking about tea there, and that did just remind me. Just before we came into the commentary box, Beck and I were making a cup of tea, and I didn't say at the time, but you cannot call that cup of tea, Rebecca.
I knew you were going to comment on this. It's basically milk and a bit of a tea bag added in.
I think the tea bag spent about 30 seconds in there. I could not believe what I was watching.
I'm with Rosanna, I like it milky. Rosanna, quick question though, talking about the banking. Have you ran this track? It's incredibly difficult with the banking. That's I'm not a racing driver, I confess, but I do like to run the tracks, and this one is particularly tricky, but I do enjoy it when you see people, they come in at the top and see how long they can hold on for and then just end up sliding down it. You get a real respect for just how steep, how much camber is actually in these turns.
I actually watched quite a few people running it in reverse yesterday, so maybe that's a sneaky way of dealing with it. I've walked around it because I was actually sent out here by F1 a few years ago to preview the racetrack before the grandstands were built, before the circuit had the tiniest of makeovers, and walked around it. There were a lot of spider webs around the track in the trees, which gave me the creeps, but I haven't run it. It's on the to-do list, Beck.
That to-do list, forever getting lower and lower on that to-do list as well. Thanks, Rosanna. Just over half an hour left of this first practice session. This is the sound of Lando Norris making his way through the chicane, the left-hander of turn 12, onto the throttle. Fastest in the first sector, fastest in the middle sector. He's on the soft tyre. It's his teammate Piastri, who is currently quickest on the medium tyre. Piastri, we'll see what he's got on the soft tyres next time around. So we're going to get a bit of a comparison here. Norris across the line, fastest, a 1:10.278. So we're already quicker than FP1 last year, but that's not really a comparison because it was a wet to dry conditions last year, and it is bone dry right now. Blue skies, white puffy clouds above this circuit Zandvoort, and this is the sound of Piastri getting it turned in through the right-hander of turn 8 and 9, out through 10, and now Abby approaching the chicane.
Yeah, it looks like actually struggling with quite a bit of understeer in the middle sector as well, which was hampering Oscar in the middle sector. A bit off of Lando, but still setting personal bests. As we go into turn 14, this is where we then get into the final cambered corner of the circuit, which is fairly straightforward. It's easy flat, it's just the DRS you have to react to, and 4 tenths off of Lando on his first soft tyre run, so I don't think he'll be very happy with that.
No, that middle sector, not the cleanest for Piastri, but it is still a McLaren 1-2 in these early stages. Verstappen is third, although we've not yet seen what he's got on the soft tyre. Russell's on an outlap now. He has bolted on the softs. Then it's Stroll in 5th, Albon, Hadjar, Alonso, Sainz and Hülkenberg the top 10. Lawson, Tsunoda, Leclerc, Hamilton and Bortoletto the top 15, with Ocon, Colapinto, Behrman and Antonelli now out of this session. All the 20 drivers that have taken part so far. We've got Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton down there. They have just put on the soft tyre, so we'll see them. They should move up the order, down in 13th and 14th. Charles Leclerc feels like he certainly missed out on a podium last time around in Hungary, and it was a really desolate weekend for Lewis Hamilton before the summer break. So I think this break is something he really needed, but so far it's been a really challenging start to his Ferrari career, hasn't it, Abby?
Yeah, the start of his Ferrari campaign, I think he was hoping for a bit more. Of course, he had the sprint race win in Shanghai, but after that, it's nothing else has really come together for him. He's struggling in comparison to Charles to get any outright performance. Everything, I mean, as a Hamilton fan and growing up watching him, it's really sad to see, and you can tell going into the break he was struggling a bit mentally, a bit down, and saying things that I don't think we've ever heard him say in the media before. So yeah, hopefully this second half of the season can have a turning point for him.
This is just the sound of George Russell, by the way. He's really struggling to get his foot down on the throttle, with the rear absolutely stepping out. And we know he's been in and out of the pit lane so far in this session. Rosanna Tennant, let's head down to you.
I've just watched Yuki Tsunoda head out into the pit lane because I nearly get run over by George Russell. So he has obviously had everything fixed. The mechanics lowered him back down, and he's heading out to have another half an hour out on track. Quick little stop for George Russell as well. In he went, and out he goes again. So he's been in a couple of times extra than I would expect, changing that front wing. I checked with the team earlier on. It was just a part of their run plan change, that front wing.
With the camera angle, we can't see your position out of turn 2. Oscar is further left than he was last year. Maybe a half to a full car width.
So that's Lando Norris being told about where Oscar Piastri is placing his car on the exit of turn 2. So even in practice 1, both sides of the garage having a look at each other to seeing where a little bit of time might be found, and just the small increment of car placement, Abby, really can make a full difference.
What I always find really interesting as well is that Lando and his engineer, they do focus a lot on communicating the little driving aspects that Norris can fix or change or try during his sessions, whereas you don't normally hear too much of that on the radio. I would say it's a common thing in the series iRacing. We normally, try doing this in this corner, and a lot driver related. But when you get to Formula One, a lot of it is on car performance. So to still hear them types of conversations happening, I really like to see. And I mean, it seems to be working for Lando at the moment, as it's only the start of the weekend, but he's at the top of the sheets as we stand. But yeah, also looking at the Mercedes previously, and George coming into the pits a lot. It seems McLaren are struggling with front end, whereas the Mercedes is struggling with just outright traction. It really isn't looking very fun for them out there at the moment.
No, not at all. We're currently looking at Yuki Tsunoda on the soft tyre, making his way through the middle sector. Just to come back to our little chat on Hamilton, Beck, I wonder what your thoughts are on Lewis Hamilton's situation at the moment. I think he'll be pleased to have had a break and a chance to reset coming into the second half of the season, or this last part of the campaign. But there's clearly a lot of work to do, but I wonder how much is it now that it's all just focused on 2026 and this season will be what it is?
I don't think Lewis Hamilton would ever write off a season. I don't think the competitive nature of him would allow that. I certainly don't think he'll be enjoying the fact that he's being beaten by his teammate. The comments from Hamilton in Hungary were absolutely extraordinary, I thought. He called himself utterly useless, which, as Abby said, I've never heard him say that before, and I've been interviewing him for many, many years now. He did come back this weekend and he said that it's obviously not how I truly feel. He's obviously rowing back quite a lot about it. He said he hadn't seen anyone in particular. It wasn't like he'd been working on the mental strength or that side of it. He had been doing meditation, which we know he's always done. He got himself a nice yacht in Greece. I'm sure that probably helped as well. Spent some time with his family and his dog. He's some red light therapy for himself and his dog, which I do recommend. It's very nice. It's very relaxing. So yeah, he's not quite in the frame of mind that I would have expected him to be in, but I'm not sure he's had the arrival at Ferrari that he thought he would have. Now, look, this team is completely built around Charles Leclerc. The whole car was designed for him. The whole team has been set up for him. He is very much what they would consider to be the future of the team. When Lewis Hamilton, a 7-time world champion, most successful statistical driver ever, many consider him the greatest ever, when he puts himself on the market, of course you are going to go and knock at his door and say, do you want to come over to Ferrari? He's getting paid a lot of money as well. But it's also worth noting that it's not been quite as brutal a season as he is on himself. He is closing the gap to Leclerc. He is making improvements. Okay, he won in China, and well, for the sprint race, I should say, which I'm sure he probably doesn't even classify really as a win. But he is closing that gap. It wasn't the springboard that we thought, but Ferrari are bringing good upgrades. We are seeing the car improving. We saw Charles Leclerc get pole position last time out. Okay, he didn't win the race, but that was on merit of that speed of that car. And also, as Benny likes to say, and I'm sure he'll chime in here, Leclerc is very quick over one lap. Benny thinks he's actually the fastest over one lap. Faster than Fernando Alonso, did you know? I'm sorry, Benny, I just had to. He's gonna rip me for that one. But Lewis Hamilton, I think, is still in a good place, but his standards are so high, which is why he is so brutal on himself. I am absolutely fascinated to see how the next 10 races pan out, because he will not give up on this season. He will not want to get beaten by his teammate, which in Formula One, as we always say, is the only real benchmark that someone has. He will want to close that gap. It's around 45 odd points between the two of them at the moment. He will make improvements. But also, as I say, I've done this sport for quite a long time now. Lewis Hamilton has this amazing ability to sort of saunter through the first half of the season, and then the business end happens. He picks it up another 3-4 gears like no one else can, and off he goes, sails off into the sunset. Most of the time in his Mercedes days that meant the championship. Certainly won't mean his 8th here for Ferrari, but I would expect to see quite a vast improvement from him over the next few months. Well,
we've got to head to 5 Live Race Centre and give Andrew Benson a right of reply to that. I know there was an article you put up on the BBC Sport website as well, Benny, about Lewis Hamilton and trying to sort of drown out the noise and focus on loving his journey in Formula One again.
Oh, I can't claim that article, Harry. That was written by my colleague Lorraine, who's here in Zandvoort with me. I think the most interesting thing Hamilton said yesterday was talking about the pressure that he's felt in the first half of the season. At the same time, he didn't really want to be in front of the media. Yesterday, you could tell that very clearly, and Beck will have been in many press conferences where he had a similar sort of mood to yesterday. His voice was very low. When he raised the topic of pressure himself, I followed up with a question, and he went, "Did I really say pressure?" And I was like, "Yes, Lewis, you literally said it like 2 minutes ago." And that's kind of what he can be like sometimes. You know, he'll say something and then he'll forget he said it, and then anyway. But look, I think on balance, what I've said in that with that article, that I did an article on the BBC Sport website a couple of days ago that tried to look at Hamilton's season in some sort of context and try and sort of take a step back a little bit and ask what might be going on. I don't have any answers, by the way, but I think what we can say clearly is that it's kind of like been a season of two halves so far. First 6 races, he was quite a long way off Leclerc on qualifying pace. From Miami onwards, from Imola onwards to start the European season, he's been much closer, less than a tenth on average, including 2 difficult weekends in Belgium and Hungary. And he actually out-qualified Leclerc 3 times in 4 races before Belgium and Hungary. So there's no question, as Beck says, he's making progress. And it is a new team in a completely different environment, in a completely different culture, and a car that behaves critically very, very differently from Mercedes. And he's just taken a bit of time to adapt to that so far. But for me, the wider question is why? He was always famed for his adaptability in Formula One, and it was one of the things that explained how good he was in the wet, for example, or how good he was when track conditions changed. I think it was qualifying lap in Canada in 2008, for example, when the track was breaking up and he was a second or more faster than his teammate Heikki Kovalainen that day. And you would see these moments of magic from Hamilton on a very regular basis all the way through his career, whether the car was absolutely competitive or not. But for the last 2 years, since the beginning of 2024, I can't remember a moment of magic at all from him. And I don't know why. And of course, people in the paddock are saying, well, he's 40 years old now. Is age anything to do with it? Again, I don't know whether that's the answer. It's just an observation more than anything else at the moment.
Thanks, Andrew. Yeah, it's certainly one that is being talked about up and down the paddock. But for Lewis Hamilton, 16 races so far and no podium. And, well, he's gone now 14 races as a Ferrari driver and no podium yet in sight for the 7-time champion. Started outside the top 10 in the last 2 Dutch Grand Prix, but hoping a break and a refresh and continual changes on the car and getting to know that Ferrari team more and more each weekend will improve him, as he almost has a bit of a moment with the Alpine of Pierre Gasly coming out of the chicane, turn 12, very slow Alpine. Well, it looked more dramatic off camera than it did on board with Lewis Hamilton, but just having to step out of the way from behind of the Frenchman's Alpine and carried on his way. 18 minutes and 29 seconds remain. It's Norris fastest, just shy of 3/10 quicker than his teammate Piastri. Alonso's having a good start to Friday, up in 3rd. Albon 4th, then it's Verstappen, Russell, Stroll in 7th ahead of Sainz, Bortoletto is 9th, then comes Gasly, Lawson is 11th ahead of Hadjar, Hulkenberg is 13th, then comes Leclerc and Hamilton down in 14th and 15th, with Tsunoda in 16th, Ocon, Colapinto and Behrman 19th, with Antonelli down in 20th, but out of this session after finding the gravel early doors and having to abandon ship on that one and getting beached.
My opinion is that we should focus about what we are doing now. We are miles off.
That's Charles Leclerc on the radio trying to give his opinion on what they should be doing now in practice, because he thinks they are miles off the pace. And well, Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton are down in 14th and 15th. Hamilton 1.6 seconds off, and Leclerc only a little quicker than him, as there's some dark grey clouds approaching the circuit in the distance. But you can never quite tell what everyone's run plan is in practice. But if you're Charles Leclerc right now, you have to take him at his word, and Ferrari not looking happy right now. Rosanna.
I'm not feeling happy right now, Harry, because you mentioned those dark clouds, and they are coming towards the circuit. They are moving steadily up the start-finish straight, and I'm a little nervous. They're going to start sprinkling some of the wet stuff over the circuit. So the breeze is picking up as well, right by the seaside. I'm a little worried. My overcoat is upstairs. But aside from that, it got a little busy down here in the pit lane. We had Yuki Tsunoda in first, and Max Verstappen came in and had to wait sort of halfway between the slow and the fast lane for his teammate to finish with the mechanics. Then we had Ferrari mechanics out ready to receive Lewis Hamilton, and all the while the lead mechanic for Oscar Piastri was trying to get his driver Piastri out as well. He then had to stop, wait for Lewis Hamilton to come in, and finally Oscar Piastri could head out and get back into the session. So nice and busy down in this little tight pit lane.
Yeah, it certainly is. That's how we like to keep you, Rosanna. Nice and busy with just over 15 minutes left of this first practice session. Definitely has got a little bit darker overhead. Mixed conditions expected throughout the weekend, but with the nature of where we are, right in the Dutch dunes, nestled on the North Sea coastline is where you find this Zandvoort circuit. The weather can change quite quickly, but that just adds to the challenge that all the drivers must relish, Abby.
You just never know what you're going to get at Zandvoort. I think you can get Sector 1 is fully wet, and then the next two sectors are perfectly dry, and I think it's part of the character of Zandvoort, really, and part of the challenge. I always find the mixed conditions as a driver is actually some of the most fun and the most enjoyable. As you spoke about Hamilton and his adaptability, that's where them kind of skills really play a part. And here at Zandvoort, definitely had one too many races in that position, me personally. But yeah, the last 15 minutes of this session, I'm not sure how much longer it is going to stay dry.
George Russell onto the brakes, down through the gears, makes his way through Tarzan, turn 1, the right-hander, then it's a short blast down towards turn 2, a slight left kink, and then turning right as you head towards Hugenholtz, the banked left-hander of turn 3, which spits you out down the roller coaster ride of 4, 5 and 6, and off he goes. Bit of work going on now at Aston Martin on Fernando Alonso's car. He's currently sitting pretty in 3rd place, and Aston Martin actually had a pretty good end to the first part of this campaign, finishing Hungary, or the Hungarian Grand Prix, Alonso in 5th, Stroll in 7th. And I suppose, should we talk about my favourite subject in Formula 1? It's always the battle of 5th place in the constructors and the midfield, because Aston Martin making a couple of gains. Williams have sat a little bit stagnant in recent times, not as quick out the blocks as they were in the first 2/3 of the season. And Sauber are coming back strong. In the last 6 Grand Prix, they have scored points, and that includes the rather remarkable podium for Nico Hülkenberg. We've got a great midfield fight on our hands, Abby.
Yeah, they've had some really impressive results recently that's kind of propelled them up the constructors' order. And Gabriel Bortoleto, he had a tough start to the season, but getting a few points finishes as well in the previous races will be very satisfying for him. But it's also Alpine, I think, seem to be struggling. They're down at the bottom of the order, but you still can't kind of count them out. Who knows what will happen at the second phase of the season? Maybe they'll have some good point scores like Sauber have and jump up the order as well.
Someone told me that apparently, even though they're last, they are the best performing last place team that Formula One has had, with the amount of points they have and in terms of how close the entire field is from first to last. Pierre Gasly has actually put in some strong showings this year. They're still ironing out what that second seat is all about. Franco Colapinto, we're almost a year to the day, it'll be next week, where he made his Formula One debut, replacing Logan Sargent at Williams in Monza last year. But this will be his first visit in Formula One machinery to the shores of Zandvoort, as we see the sound of hear the sound of Ollie Behrman down in 19th, making his way through the bank's final corner. And you looked a little bit funnily at that, Abby.
Yeah, I think it's starting to spit out on track now. Ollie's lap there, it looked like he was pushing, but he just had no grip at all. So I think it could be getting a bit slippery out there, but I don't know if my eyes deceive me or if the cloud is just playing tricks on my mind. Whereas then we go to other shots and it looks like blue skies, sunlight, and yeah.
Rosanna's reporting no rain in the pit lane yet, but that doesn't mean it's not elsewhere, Beck.
Well, I think this is really interesting now, because this track had no grip anyway, and we saw it at the start. A couple of drivers making mistakes, so they got a bit of a feel for it. Then if it rains, it's going to wash away all that rubber that they've been laying down for FP1. It makes it a lot more spicy. They don't quite get to do their run programs, not that we ever know what they are. So I'm really sorry, Rosanna, but I'm doing a bit of a rain dance up here in the very dry, very cold, but very dry comms box.
Beck.
Sorry, Rosanna.
No. Do you know what? It's not raining in the pit lane, as you've just heard, and it looks like that huge black cloud is making its way out to sea. So I'm hoping we get away with it. But the flags are fluttering. It's just very breezy, and we know how that affects Formula One cars. And the wind around this track is particularly tricky to manage, isn't it, Abby, with these cars?
Yeah, I mean, the place where you really feel the wind here is on top of the crest at turn 7. So the entry there, the rear goes light, and then you get a gust of wind, and it just changes every time you go round. Everywhere else is fairly sheltered on this circuit, other than a few high points. So it's not too bad, but then in a Formula 1 car, anything can really make an impact. But we're also seeing...
What are you doing, man?
Now, we were watching this live at the time. Lance Stroll was on a rather quick lap and is right behind Yuki Tsunoda's Red Bull. That was Stroll you just heard on the radio there as they came out of 3 and down 4, 5 and 6. Tsunoda being given some blue flags. Stroll clearly on a much quicker lap, but not getting out of the way. And in the end, Stroll coming to ease off the pace. And you could hear the complaint from the Canadian to his team, which Race Control will have a look at, but it is only practice, so we never normally see any kind of penalty given for impeding on that front. Stroll currently up in 7th, but 1.1 seconds back from the leading car of Lando Norris. A 1:10.2 for the McLaren driver, just shy of 3/10 clear of Oscar Piastri. Alonso's up in 3rd. Albon is in 4th. Max Verstappen the top 5. Alex Albon have been describing this track as a bit of a bogey track for the Williams team. That sometimes they have gone well, other times they have not. And for Alex Albon in the last few races, it hasn't, just having a look at how he's performed. Yeah, he managed to get 6th place in Belgium, but Hungary wasn't much to write home about for the Thai driver, and had a run of DNFs coming through the European season as well. And Beck for Williams, who sit pretty in 5th at the moment, they have got to look over their shoulder. But do you think they've done enough in the early part of the season, or is this fight, much like the title fight we hope, going to go all the way down to Abu Dhabi too?
No, this fight is on. I think Williams have had a great start to the season. I think James Vowles has done a brilliant job there. You know, actually we talk a lot about the young drivers and the rookies who come through, but we haven't. There's a lot of exciting team principals coming through at the moment. I think we're seeing it with James Vowles at Williams. I think we're seeing it with Jonathan Wheatley, what he's doing there at Sauber. There's only 36 points between Williams in 5th and Haas in 9th, and then Alpine another 15 points back. And so I think it is really exciting. I was just looking, and Albon is actually 8th in the driver's standing. And that is very impressive, because that basically means he's best of the rest, pretty much. He's had a very good season. He's outperforming his teammate, Carlos Sainz. Everyone thought he would come in and be quite a bit stronger, but he's not. Currently, Carlos Sainz is down in 16th, having only scored 16 points to Albon's 54. So quite a big margin there. I think Williams do have to look over their shoulder, because these midfield teams are not rich teams like we talk about at the front with Ferrari and Red Bull, and they all seem to have, you know, we have the budget cap in place, but they all have, you know, limitless pockets, it seems. And the difference between 5th and 6th in the Constructors' Championship, which decides the prize money, we are talking millions, tens of millions of dollars, and every single penny matters to these teams. So they don't have the luxury of just saying we're going to focus on 2026. They have to work out now where they're putting their resources, because this midfield battle is so close. It's all to play for. There is so much still to play for. And then we mentioned it a bit earlier about there's still seats up for grabs as well. So everyone is fighting for their careers here as well. So there is still so much to play for, and it really, really genuinely does matter. Okay, it's not the sexy end of the grid, but it is so important to these teams.
It certainly is, and that's why when you see a resurgent Sauber with Nico Hülkenberg and Gabriel Bortoleto looking reborn, really, since they bolted on an upgrade around Barcelona time, that is cause for worry for the likes of Williams and Aston Martin, who are ahead of them. But Aston Martin feeling fairly confident. Racing Bulls as well, looking for improvements. Haas have had an up and down season, I think it's fair to say, with Esteban Ocon and Ollie Behrman. But you look at the top 10 in the Drivers' Championship. Impressive. Albon is up in 8th, Hulkenberg's 9th, Ocon is 10th. So, and you know, they're all ahead of the two Aston Martin drivers, who are just behind them at 11th and 12th. So that is going to be a really nice battle to keep an eye on throughout the remainder of this Formula 1 season.
Quite enjoying the battle between the Aston Martin pair as well, because it was that 5th place in Hungary that means Alonso is now ahead of Stroll, which means I now can't take the mick out of Benny anymore that Stroll is faster than Alonso.
No, you can't. Stroll, but this is the thing with Stroll. Sometimes when the car is... Because if you go back to Hungary, he actually looked decent. Yes, he was behind Alonso, but we expect that. But actually, when the car is there and capable, Stroll more often than not delivers.
Yeah, absolutely. He's currently third, Alonso's fourth, and if it rains, Stroll has his moments of absolute brilliance in the rain. So, yeah, he doesn't... Okay, he is an incredibly difficult person to interview. I'm never entirely sure he wants to be on the grid or if he's kind of just doing it because his dad makes him. It's always a bit difficult. But he does have moments of absolute brilliance. Absolute brilliance.
Yeah, I mean, right now Aston are looking really, really strong. It's only free practice one, so we'll see how the rest of the weekend shapes up for them. But being the next best to McLaren so far in this FP1 session is not something to put your nose up to. And yeah, Lance putting in a lap that was good enough to put him ahead of Alonso. And after that frustration as well with Yuki throwing his hands in the air.
A happy Lance Stroll as well is good for everybody, I think, is fair to say.
I don't know if I've ever seen that version of him.
I've had a happy Lance Stroll.
Actually, Turkey 2020.
Yeah, that was a good weekend, wasn't it? That was a good weekend for him. Yeah, very happy for Stroll there. 1 pole position to his name in Formula 1, 3 podiums from 178 Grand Prix starts for the Canadian driver. Less than 5 minutes remain of this session. Norris, Piastri the top 2. Stroll, as we say, is in third ahead of Alonso. Albon 5th. Verstappen, Russell, Sainz, Bortoletto, Gasly the top 10. Then it's Lawson, Hadjar, Hulkenberg, Leclerc and Hamilton needing to find pace. Ferrari drivers not happy so far. Certainly Charles Leclerc not happy. Tsunoda is down in 16th and off the pace. And if you want a bit of a laugh, do listen in the gap in between these sessions to our latest Checkered Flag, previewing the weekend with Rosanna Tennant, Jolyon Palmer and Andrew Benson. And it looked like Benny just entirely forgot that Red Bull had a number 2 driver at one point. Couldn't quite remember Yuki Tsunoda's name, which I have to confess did make me laugh out loud. He's currently down in 16th. Then it's Ocon, Colapinto and Behrman, the 19 drivers who are still in this session. Antonelli is 20th and last, but found himself beached in the gravel, and that was the end of his session early doors. A crucial session for the now 19-year-old rookie to lose out on.
That was very dangerous for Stroll.
It was Ollie Behrman having to ease off the pace. Coming into, I think it was turn 7, wasn't it? This is what we're going to see time and time again, though, Abby, and particularly in that first part of qualifying, managing that traffic. We talk about it when we go to Monaco quite a lot. Obviously, this isn't quite as extreme as Monaco, but it's not far off, especially in that middle sector. This
circuit is very narrow, and as well, where Ollie just got caught out with Lance, it's blind, it's downhill, and it's the fastest corner on the circuit. So it's the worst place you want to be catching someone, and yeah, it's annoying having to go offline as well. You get your tyres dirty, ready setting up the next lap. So yeah, here it is almost Monaco-esque, like you say, with traffic management. I'd say the key thing is that middle sector with all the blind corners. It just makes it very hard to manage from both drivers.
It's like Monaco without the walls, isn't it? I think that's the saying.
I think the walls are still pretty close around here, to be fair.
I'm trying to wind Andrew Benson up.
Right.
He's not biting at all. I don't think he's listening to us anymore.
He's zoned out, that's why. He's zoned out. No, he's doing something more important at 5 Live Race Centre, that's for sure.
He's right in the back.
This is Monaco by the beach. Let's say that. Monaco by the beach.
You know where Monaco is, right?
Yeah, but it's not as it's not sandy
really
dune kind of like.
You've not been down to Note Blue or whatever that place is called?
I don't go to the posh parts. No, I rough it. I rough it when I go to Monaco. And I think, have we got from 5 Live Race Centres, we just seeing a lock-up from George Russell a few moments ago, hitting the gravel. And an apology on the radio from him. That was going into Tarzan. Turn 1 just snatched the front right, and off he went into the gravel, but managed to get back on his way. It's been a bit of a messy session for George Russell so far, in and out of the pit lane, but continues on his way. Have we got an Andrew Benson? Hello.
Yeah, I was trying to zone out the white noise, actually, Harry, to be honest with you. You know, Alonso, blah, 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 this, that, the other. But this is like Monaco in no way whatsoever. I'm just going to say that and leave you alone.
Oh, fine.
We all know you're going to enjoy a beer on the beach later, Benny.
I'm actually going to have a pub quiz with McLaren and with the rest of my media colleagues.
You love a pub quiz, don't you?
I've won that before. I know, I won the Williams one.
The last pub quiz I did was with Andrew, and it was a Williams pub quiz. Where was it again? It was Hungary, wasn't it?
Hungary, they do theirs, yeah.
I won a Pirelli one earlier this year, but I have won McLaren as well before, but I don't think I'll win this one.
I feel like if there was
Although
anyone...
I am doing it with Mark Hughes, who's sitting next to me. So
you're going to win.
age and expertise there. So.
I was going to say, if there's anyone that I would want on my team, I think it would be Andrew for a pub quiz.
He was pretty good. When we did the pub quiz, which James Vowles hosted for Williams, Andrew Benson kicked off about the questions that were being asked, and he wasn't happy. They weren't entirely correct for him.
Which can be dangerous in the Williams pub quiz, because when you start challenging, you have to do shots. So I imagine it got quite messy, did it?
Well, no, Andrew Benson would never subject himself to that kind of behaviour. Rosanna, it sounds like, are you not on this all-star pub quiz team?
I'm the non-star on the all-star team. I'm a bit worried. I'm going to have a read of an encyclopedia this afternoon so that I can pull out some stats and answers and impress Benny. I'm nervous, Harry. I'm nervous.
Well, is it an F1 quiz or is it general knowledge? Do you know?
Do you know, I don't know which is better or worse for me.
Probably both, knowing them.
I think it'll be both. I like those ones where they give you a little tiny bit of a logo and you have to guess what it might be. I might be able to do that. That could be my strength. I am about to head out of the pit lane because we have to leave a little bit early nowadays. But McLaren have just been practicing pit stops. Lando Norris was the first to go, and he had to shoot out into the fast lane because an Aston Martin was coming. A little bit dicey, if you ask me. But Oscar Piastri then came in, and they've completed their practice pit stop. So we've got away with it. No rain, just very, very breezy.
We got away with it. Thank you, Rosanna Tennant. We will have another practice session in a couple of hours' time. You can hear that in full on Sports Extra later on today. We'll be on air just before 3 o'clock this afternoon ahead of that session. But the first hour is done and dusted, with still some cars, though, to take the checkered flag. One of them being Lando Norris, who finds himself at the top of the pile to restart this 2025 Formula One season with a 1:10.278. He is 0.292 seconds clear of his teammate Oscar Piastri. McLaren 1 and 2. Then it's Lance Stroll and Fernando Alonso, 3rd and 4th. Half a second adrift for both of them. Strong starts to the weekend for the Aston Martin duo. Alex Albon up there in 5th. Max Verstappen down in 6th, with George Russell in 7th. Carlos Sainz makes it 2 Williams inside the top 8. Gabriel Bortoleto off the back of one of his strongest weekends to date in Hungary, finishing in 9th. Pierre Gasly rounding out the top 10. Then it's the 2 Racing Bulls. Liam Lawson ahead of Isaac Hadjar. It was Liam Lawson who made his debut here a couple of years ago, replacing the injured Daniel Ricciardo halfway through the weekend. Hulkenberg is 13th. Then it's the 2 Ferraris, 1.6 seconds adrift. Leclerc in 14th and Hamilton just behind him. Tsunoda also struggling in that second Red Bull, down in 16th. Esteban Ocon, Franco Colapinto and Oliver Behrman 19th, with Kimi Antonelli 20th and last. But the Italian for Mercedes finding the gravel early in the session and couldn't get that Mercedes out. He was beached, and that was the end of his session. So he'll be looking to get that car back in time for free practice 2 and to make sure he can get some crucial running in ahead of Saturday's qualifying, and what is a tricky track to get right. The smallest of mistakes are punished, and the weather can wreak havoc as well. But reigning F1 Academy champion Abby Pulling, what did you make of that first practice session? Who's caught your eye? Who's got work to do?
It looked really tough out there for everyone, to be honest. I think Kimi is now on the back foot, missing that FP1, and the Mercedes in general looked pretty tough. Lots of bottoming and sparks thrown out to start the session. But yeah, I think everyone had their own moments. I think we have some pictures.
I think we're seeing some live shots. This is Max Verstappen. We're looking at Max Verstappen, who's gone off after the checkered flag and has found himself beached at turn 1. Exactly, Abby. And Tarzan, he's just switched off the engine. What on earth has gone on there for Max Verstappen? He looks like he's gone fairly straight through turn 1, which is a right-hander, and the rear wheels are lodged in the gravel. He's just tried to light up the rear wheels, but they are spinning round and round.
Maybe he just decided to say hi to the fans watching.
How curious.
Yeah, it's very peculiar, especially on the in-lap. It looks like he's probably locked up and done what George Russell did, as we saw on the last couple of laps, but didn't manage to make it to the escape road, potentially.
No, he's still in the car, but I think he's getting out now. He's just unbelted himself. So he would have done a practice start. This is the sound of it. I
think he's locked up on the practice start. That will punch the ego a little bit, that one.
Turns in, lock up front right. You can see the smoke from the tyre into the gravel, and you can even see the gravel just coming into the cockpit.
I'm stuck.
Yeah, you can switch off.
Even world champions can make quite big mistakes.
He bounced along that gravel as well. That wouldn't have been the smoothest of rides for Max Verstappen, but you don't see Max Verstappen making mistakes like that too often. Maybe it's just a bit of holiday rust that he's just shaking off before we go into free practice 2. But we are pretty much now done as Max Verstappen is out of the car and has a look at his Red Bull stuck in the gravel. They'll crane that back to the pit lane in between sessions. He's just trying to clear it off some gravel before it goes. Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri, though, the quickest at the end of this session. It's McLaren advantage from the off here in the Dutch dunes. We'll be back later. This has been an IMG production for BBC Radio 5 Live.